Hi, you've clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Thursday. Happy July, everyone. Not so happy in Mexico over here. Here's Alex drenching these poor people with lots of rain and flooding. There are already reports of some deaths due to the flooding, and our hearts go out to these people. This was a really incredible sight to see a storm of this magnitude in the month of June. Alex was all the way down to 947 millibars before landfall. The recon left a couple hours before landfall, so it likely got even lower than that. And it's likely that Alex tied or beat Hurricane Audrey, which was down to 946 millibars in 1957, June 27th, for the lowest pressure in a hurricane ever in the Atlantic in the month of June. But this storm will go down officially as the second strongest ever in recorded history in the Atlantic during the month of June, and looks like it made landfall officially in July, as it made landfall a couple hours after midnight Universal Time last night. But just an incredible storm to see, and you can see the eye still defined inland here. It looks like a major hurricane made landfall. It very nearly was a major hurricane, to be honest. Just an incredible sight to see in June. It's the sign of the kind of year we're going to have this year. Looking ahead now for possible other troublemakers down the road, we've got a tropical wave coming into the Windward Islands here, and another one out at 40 west, and we've got a couple of models that are trying to jump on these. This is the no gaps. You can see it brings the wave that's near the windwards now, brings it in here and tries to wind it up in the Western Caribbean. This is 144 hours, by the way, and it brings the wave at 40 west up here and tries to form a low north of the Caribbean islands, and conditions will be fairly favorable in the Caribbean, with upper ridging dominating for the most part in this area, so it's entirely possible that these could try to be troublemakers. We'll have to watch them as we go on. The Canadian is not so impressed with the wave that comes out of the windwards, but it does try to wind up the one that's at 40 west and brings it north of the islands. And check out the stuff in here. It's because we've got a trough split going on, and I'm going to show you how that's working. This is the GFS Ensemble's 500 millibar heights and anomalies at 96 hours. I'm not sure if you can see these gray lines very well or not, but those are the height lines. This is the trough that's coming through the east right now. This starts to lift out, and you see ridging building behind it. We go out to 144 hours, and you can see the ridge builds over the top, and the trough lifts out, and look what gets cut off behind. It's a trough split. I talk about these a lot. A piece of the tail of the upper trough gets left behind over here east of Florida, and if we go out to day 7, you can see all this blue in this area over in the northwest Caribbean, the Bahamas, and the Gulf of Mexico, indicating lower than normal heights in this area of the world. And look at all the blocking over the top here, and this is a pattern which is favorable for tropical mischief. Look what it has under it, all this precipitation in this area, both east and west of Florida. And this is the operational look at it. You can see it's got a couple of areas of low pressure along this old frontal boundary that gets draped down here. And when you have a trough split backing away like this, when you have low heights sitting in this area with blocking over the top, it's a very favorable pattern for stuff to go on. And there may be a 200 millibar trough tut-like feature in here that may be shearing some systems out this far east, but you get stuff back here in the Gulf of Mexico, and you get ventilated by this tut in here with lower than normal heights and precipitation going off. It's a recipe for some trouble. This is the UK Met depiction of it. You can see this is day 5. Here's the Banana Ridge over the top. You've got the lower than normal heights in here and a surface trough east of Florida. And also you can see this tropical wave. This is the one at 40 west, which the Canadian was bombing out up in here. You can see that in the Eastern Caribbean becoming defined. This is the Canadian Ensemble's day 4, 144 hours. It actually has very low pressures compared to the other models. This is 1008 millibars all through here, all lower than that. You can see these red numbers here are ensemble members forecasting a low center, surface low center, in the central Gulf of Mexico. You can see them clustering in here, and lots of low pressures in here as it shows the trough split in this area. This is the NAIFS showing lots of precipitation in the central Gulf of Mexico as well, and some east of Florida. So you can see the pattern we're in here is something that we should be watching over the next few days, specifically midweek next week, as this trough lifts out and you get lower heights in here and a trough split that can cause trouble. When you get an old frontal boundary, when you get an old frontal boundary and a trough split in the mid-levels back over here in the Gulf of Mexico and near Florida, that's a recipe for mischief to brew, when we call that homegrown mischief near the coast, and that can be a dangerous thing. The oil spill people over here are going to be concerned about this. If we see a surface low try to develop under this with blocking over the top, this is nothing but trapped down here, and it's just going to sit and bubble and bubble and bubble, and sometimes that pot will bubble right over. So you can see the concern we have next week for trouble both east and west of Florida. Potentially we'll have to see where some of this tries to materialize. The chances are better for actual development in the Gulf of Mexico, as stuff out here will be more likely to be sheared. We'll see how that works. Let's take a look at the GFS ensembles now. This is day 12, 500 millibar heights and anomalies. Look at the big ridge pumping to the northeast over southeast Canada here off the southeast shore of Hudson Bay. This is a pattern very much resembling, unfortunately, 2005, in that when you get ridging up in here, it promotes less troughing and more hurricanes that want to come west towards the United States and come in instead of recurving. And when you get blocking over this area, you always look for trouble underneath, as the tropics like to brew beneath ridges in the tropics. And what this ridge also does in the early part of the season especially, is it likes to promote trough splitting. I want you to look at the 500 millibar height anomalies for the month of June. This is June 1st to June 29th average. You can see the big positive has been over the Tennessee Valley over here in the central eastern U.S. Down pretty far south here at 35 to 40 north. If we look at this is way up in Canada over here, and this is more resembling of a pattern where instead of here where the troughs come across and they get shunted this way and nothing is really allowed to get down in here, no fronts, no troughs, but when you get the ridge up in here, there's more room for the troughs to come down and fronts to come underneath, and you end up with them hanging back in this area and getting dragged out. As the troughs leave, stuff gets left hanging back in here and you get trough splitting. And this is what I was showing you over here. The ridge pumps, the trough lifts out, and you're left with a piece that gets stuck and backs away towards the west, and that's when you can start getting trouble. When the ridge is way up here, it causes all sorts of problems, both for the hurricane season as a whole and in the early season when troughs are still trying to dig deep and get underneath this thing and cause trouble in this area. So these are some of the things we're going to have to watch as we go forward in the month. And specifically next week, we're still watching the African wave train. We got a couple of waves to watch here as they come across. The pattern is conducive. The season is setting up in a way that is still very scary looking. We've already had a hurricane that we didn't really think we'd see during this month of the year. So things are starting to wind up, folks, and I hope everyone is prepared for this season. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.